What's up, everybody? I am back, continuing on the Halloween themed movie reviews, and today I am going into the 80s classic Teen Wolf, starring Michael J. Fox. And it's been a mighty long time since I've seen this film. I've seen this quite a few times when I was very young, because it was on cable quite a bit, especially around like the Halloween season. And of course, this has become like a classic, especially up there in terms of the best Michael J. Fox films. And this made bank right behind Back to the Future, which it was an incredible time for Michael J. Fox, because I'm pretty sure Back to the Future came out the same year as Teen Wolf. Yeah. Back to the Future came out on July 3rd of 1985, and this one came out in August. So he was filming these kind of things, fairly close to each other. All the while, because, he was already a rising star because of the TV show he was on. Crap, what was it? What TV show Michael J. Fox was on? Crap. Family Ties, that was it. I only saw a little bit of Family Ties. I know I watched it, but I wasn't like an avid watcher when I was watching the reruns as a kid. But I am familiar with it. But anyway, this was directed by the late Rod Daniel. Stars Michael J. Fox as Scott Howard, the late James Hampton as Harold Howard, the father. And I could have sworn, maybe because, I don't know, maybe I was having some kind of Mandela effect or confusing this movie with something else. But for the longest time, for some reason, I was under the conclusion that Scott had like a younger brother. And no, he was the only kid, the only child. I was like, oh, I don't know why. Like I said, I might have been confusing this movie with some other movie, but I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, where's the younger brother? It's like, no, there's no younger brother. I don't know why I was thinking it was a younger brother. Anyway, we got Susan Ursetti as Lisa Booth Marconi, and kind of a weird name to call a woman, Booth. Why, I don't know where she got the name Booth. Sounds like it's kind of sound like a sound effect. This almost the same sound effect as Nightcrawler when he teleports, like Bamf. She goes Booth. Jerry Levine as Rupert Stiles Stilinski, who turned out as like a big TV director. He's directed some episodes of Everybody Hates Chris, and more recently some Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Matt Adler as Lewis, Laurie Griffin as Pamela Wells, Jim McCrell as Rusty Thorne, Mark Arnold as Mick McAllister, Jay Tarse as Coach Bobby Finstock, Mark Holton as Chevy. Yes, I know, it was the 80s, okay? We was letting things fly back in the day. Honestly, for better or worse, we was all the better for it. Okay, they actually use the F slur word for the homosexuals twice in this film. We got Star Wars. They got a character named Porkins. So we had the qualities of like making like fat commentary, okay? We got a guy named Chubbs or Chubby, sorry, like Chubbs. Scott Poland as Kirk Lawley, and Doug Savant as Brad. So this is like your kind of like your run of the mill coming of age story, which honestly, I don't know what it is, but I think like the '80s movies, at least the majority of them, have like this unique style of sound, like at least scores that they use, where you just tell it's totally '80s. And I ain't talking about like needle drops or music, like keytars or anything like that. I'm talking about like just like this melody as like Scott and Booth are just walking down the street trying to walk her to her house, and just like a casual conversation, just daytime. Honestly, kind of looks like the same street that in the movie Halloween. I'm kind of waiting for Michael Myers to poke his head out on the side of the bushes, kind of thing. Uh, it seems like those type of streets. But anyway, the melody is just kind of like a feel good melody. It's like, I don't know. You can do a lot with scores and melodies that kind of set the tone of a particular scene, let alone a whole entire movie. But it's just kind of like, it gets you, kind of focused on these two lovebirds kind of thing. At least one is, it's kind of like the flip of what you normally see from a guy's point of view. But you're seeing this girl next door. She's a little girl next door type of female that is pining after the boy she has feelings for since the time they was young, but he is pining after the hot popular chick that ain't paying him no mind at all. Tells all his time for a lot of guys. But I just really like love these kind of scores in like the at least for the most part the '80s films. And of course, there's other films in other decades that I like the scores, but there's something about like the '80s scores when it's kind of trying to set the tone, especially when it comes to like coming of age stories or rom-coms or just comedies. Like Beverly Hills Cop has great scores outside of like the actual album songs. It just kind of like set the mood for what you're about to get into. Anyway, there's also like a good sports movie too, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, it's a nice combination of supernatural, coming of age story, and sports film. There's a nice little balance of the three. Uh, uh, I'm hard pressed to figure out which one has is like the hierarchy. I like to say that the whole supernatural element is more the hierarchy, but I guess it all depends on what type of scene is being played that determines which one of the three takes dominance. Because when you have like moments, like the keg parties, or you see like goofy teenagers surfing on top of the moving vehicle. That's like, oh yeah, this is like a totally come of age story, teen kind of thing. But then you get like the supernatural elements where like the whole werewolf element is coming to play. But then you also get moments like okay, what was it saying? Like, supernatural coming of age sports film. Like whenever you go on the basketball thing, that's when it's like, oh, that's the primary focus. and that kind of takes dominance. So it all depends on the scene. Uh, but I think the writers and the cinematographers did a good job in like not just balancing, but knowing when the shift happens. Uh, it's kind of like an ensemble cast, and everybody has their fair share of screen time. These type of genres have their fair share of screen time, and I really appreciate that. Um, so Scott is a 17-year-old kid who's trying to figure himself out. Of course, it's like he doesn't know which way is up in terms of his life, and he's struggling with trying to get at the girl that he likes, and tries to his high school basketball team sucks, and he's trying to get them to make the championship, but he feels kind of lesser than. But he's noticing these little changes, like long hairs growing in odd places. Uh, he's kind of, as he's trying to score a keg of beer off the this mean old man at the convenience store, his eyes glow red. Now, there are moments when the transformation is really good for the time, especially. But there's other times when you see his glowing red eyes, it's like not so great. Let's put it that way. It's like, okay, you use some digital effects just to his pupils are not like, it doesn't feel like authentic. I know what you're saying. It's not supposed to be authentic, but you catch my drift. It's just like, when you depict like at least hell, going as far back as the 2000s, when you deal with like certain horror elements, they do the job of doing like either is in practical effects or CGI. It do a decent blend to make it look good. Here, just like, okay, we because there's only a $4 million budget, so I guess they got like a legit excuse. So he just eyes turn red, and kind of like, got a deeper, monstrous voice, convinces the clerk to sell him the keg of beer. And it's like, okay, as a person who likes classic horror monsters like werewolves, sure, they wolves have like a like give off pheromones. They got an intimidation factor, sure, maybe, but none of it suggests that they can. You treat it like vampires, where they have the capability of manipulating somebody's mind to get them to do what they want. Werewolves don't have that capability, and giving Scott that capability to convince that clerk to. The clerk should have ran out of there. And matter of fact, if I would have played this, I would have played this like, oh, he intimidated him to the point where he just kind of ran off, panicking and scared, not knowing what the heck is going on, and Scott just takes the keg and stuff. And I would have gone with that. But I don't know. It just seems like, okay, that made no sense to me personally. However, when you actually get into the whole first time he does his werewolf transformation, which is the only time we actually see that transformation in practical effects, it looks pretty good, like I said, for the time. However, this is the only time we actually see him actually do the transformation in the bathroom, and every other time Michael J. Fox like always gets covered, or he's going behind something, and then which is brilliantly done, honestly, because it's like, because you're so distracted. It's kind of like a magician. You're looking at one hand without paying attention to the other kind of situation, and everything's so busy, or something's going on that's kind of like drawing you in. You nearly forget about the transformation that's currently going on. As Scott is freaking out because after he left the party when he's in doing like a kissing in the closet kind of game in the at the party, and he ends up accidentally scratching Booth's back, which really doesn't raise any questions from nobody at the party, nor this doesn't cause Booth to turn into a werewolf herself, which is weird. Because if you know anything about werewolf lore or zombie lore or vampire lore, bites or normally scratches usually cause like the curse to transfer. Like not a scratch from a vampire, but you know what I mean. But it's like there's clear rules when it comes to making werewolves. Well, he's shocked by the transformation, which is still like a classic look. One of the most classic looks in movie history, with the Michael J. Fox werewolf version. Because clearly they was going with the whole Wolfman look and not the American Werewolf in London type of aesthetic or underworld type of aesthetic, which is the more common depictions of werewolves in media. However, every once in a while, I do appreciate when they, go back to the classic Wolfman look, which now I'm thinking about is kind of like the separation between like different types of werewolves in media. Wolfman is more so a curse, while werewolves, it seems like it's a curse too, but it follows the more common trope of bites and scratches cause the transformation, and they're more feral rather than having like I'm about to say more feral rather than keeping their sensibilities. But this is like the one of the few werewolf interpretations where they get to keep all their faculties. The father shows he is a wolfman too, and he kept it a secret because he kind of hoping it skipped a generation, so he wouldn't have to worry about telling him. But there was a scene early on where a kid at the hardware store was, that the father and the son was working at, that was blowing a dog whistle, and clearly he caught the attention of Scott. However, how is it that you don't see any reaction coming from the dad? And you can't say like, oh, he worked up a he built up some kind of resistance or some exercises to keep him from getting bothered by it. But he's still like a canine family kind of situation here. There should be some level of reaction, or at least, maybe not a camera pointing at his face because that'll kind of blow the cover before the actual surprise. But just off screen or something, or with like the nice trick of the camera, or coming from the actor, there should be some kind of like like a jiggering motion or something, or a wincing or something subtle where we don't notice it at first until we see him transforming, and then whenever you do a rewatch, all that starts coming together in your brain. I mean, that's how I would play. I don't know. But he explains this guy that and he actually used the whole Spider-Man line, for great power must comes great responsibility. And it's like, I guess y'all don't read comics. But Scott reveals to his friend Styles, who seems like he always trying to sell something, or like trying to make some kind of merchandise, and trying to, like, kind of like a scammer kind of guy. So he wanted to confide in somebody, otherwise he feels like he totally isolated. But he wanted to keep it a secret. But next scene, all that goes out the window when he's at the basketball game and getting hounded, no pun intended, and then he wolfs out in front of everybody. Now, I do appreciate the stunned reaction. However, you just saw somebody turn into a humanoid animal. A wolf, no less. A real live werewolf, no doubt. And I should be seeing scores of people running out of the auditorium. This doesn't seem to be making national news. I don't think this is that much of a small town. But this should be making national news. There should be people interviewing him. Looking back, I know this is the 80s, but looking back, you would think, okay, there was a person who turns into a real life werewolf that's conscientious and all that stuff. And I'm surprised that the father is not more furious, because this is like a family curse. It's always been like a thing, like a world that he's more privy to than his son, and this kind of thing need to be like put a lid on, because it's like, what's stopping from the government coming in and experimenting on the both of them or something? That should be this should be a lot bigger deal than just, him using the wolf powers to get more popular, which he does because of his enhanced capabilities. He's able to run faster, jump higher, outmaneuver with super agility to make him like a superior athlete. And because of that, the basketball team, the Beavers, are doing exceptionally well, and they're gonna, on their way to go to the championship. So a montage of it. So everybody's feeling him. Everybody's want to utilize, even like the teachers, like the drama teachers, bringing Scott in to take up a role as a Union soldier in a Civil War type of play for the high school. But he wants him as the werewolf in order to do it. It's like, why? And I'm so glad this movie isn't about this freaking play. It could have easily cut that part, honestly. Well, not in totality, but him trying to, why is he taking part in he's taking part in the freaking play more so to be closer to that popular girl. But I don't know, it seems like it could have been any other way that could have done that same result. But then this crazy woman, I don't say crazy, but this manipulative woman, because she want to make Mick, the boyfriend, jealous, who's like the bully in this movie. uh, she ends up uh, having sex with Scott in the dressing room, and Booth, but then she rejects him and not actually going out on the date. She's just using him to get back at Mick for some odd reason. It was never really a scene shown where they had some kind of, they was on the outs, or she's known to be some kind of manipulator or playing with guys' hearts or anything like that. She seems, just like just a popular chick, just not initially into Scott, but it just seems like, okay, why you want to make this guy jealous? What did he do exactly? We didn't set none of that to offer any kind of credibility. She could have had some girlfriends who saying like, oh, he's such a jerk, and I can't believe he slept with Bonnie Lincoln a year ago, or last week, and you gonna take him back? Oh, I got him. Kind of sell like something to give her a reason to use Scott to make him jealous. Otherwise, I mean, she would still seem like a bit of like a bitch, but there would have been some layer of understanding, or at least not understanding, but you get it. What led to this point. And but she doesn't want to go out to the school dance with Scott. She's not really interested in him. So Scott ends up asking Booth to go out to the dance. Of course, she agrees under a condition that he goes as himself, because her and his friend Lewis, but Niles, who just sees an opportunity, not that he doesn't care, but he's making too much money off of the Teen Wolf merchandise, literally in universe Teen Wolf merchandise. But his high school basketball playmates, kind of feel like he's too intimate. He kind of lost himself, because now that he got all this popularity, something he never had, he's misusing it, and also misusing the wolf powers as his father trying to warn him not to do. But he's getting ahead in life. But it's just like, all his true friends who didn't care about him being popular, they just like him because he was just him, even though he didn't feel like he was. It's kind of like the whole George Bailey, you never know what you had until you lose it kind of situation. So he feels like, okay, I have to come as a wolf, because that's what everybody's expecting. But after the stupid Teen Wolf dance, which is like, I don't know what the heck that is, white people, but she takes Scott out, kisses him, which reverts him back to his normal form, and decides, okay, I'm gonna spend the rest of the dance as myself with you, Booth, because now he's come to realize what Booth means to him, especially after the popular girl curved his ass. But because even wolf or not, his mixed girls looking over at him all like with lusty eyes and stuff like that, because he's popular or whatever, or he just got that charisma. So Mick goes over there and sucker punches Scott and assaults Booth. This triggers his transformation, because usually when you anger a person who got werewolf powers, they immediately starts transforming. It's kind of like Hulk thing. So he ends up slashing at Mick, ripping off his shirt, which freaks everybody out. He comes quickly to his senses, and he starts, to run out, but he gets stopped by the assistant principal, Thorne, who never cared for Scott. Always seems to give this kid grief for no apparent reason, but we learned the reason in a previous scene, as we see Scott's father was at the dance. I guess he was doing like a chaperone thing, and he tells Scott to go home as he confronts this principal, who he tells this guy, leave my son alone. He's a good kid. He's going through some stuff right now. Like, he doesn't need you on his back. He growls at the guy as Thorne pees himself, and Scott's dad walks away, because we learned in the previous scene that the reason Thorne's giving Scott such a hard time because he's holding this grudge, because like the way Scott acted towards Mick, because like Scott, Harold didn't respect the wolf powers, and his because there's drawbacks to this. Like, if you lose your temper, the transformation occurs and you going on rage and instinct, which is not a good combination when you're a werewolf. And Harold nearly killed Thorne, but that also made sure that Thorne never bothered his mom, Scott's mom, again, because Thorne had like a thing for his mom. But now it's like, but because she preferred Harold, he held this bitter kind of jealousy over the years. So Scott comes to the conclusion, okay, I can't be this, anymore. I can't use this to get ahead. I want to do it on my own merit, and I want to stop trying to placate the people who don't really care about me, like the real me, just like that popular girl did. Like the popular girl, like, pretty much, like, ultimately she didn't really care. She cared about what, the whole fame and all this other stuff that came. But the championship comes up, and of course, like all sports films that has some kind of gimmick, like Angels in the Outfield, we can't use the supernatural gift in order to win the championship game. It means a lot more if the person do it on their own merit, which ultimately Scott does. After he gets fouled by Mick, he got ahead with the foul shots, winning the game and the respect of his teammates and like the school, because they're because he did it as Scott, not as a werewolf. And so the movie ends with Scott, curving that prissy popular chick, as then she retroactively curves Mick. Scott goes to make out with Booth, hugs his dad, and I'm pretty sure people brought this up over the years. Now I can't unsee it. That some weird kid off in the stands right before the credits roll stands up with his pants unzipped, and you see him zipping it up, and it's like, and no one caught this, and it's like, I guess the director at the time didn't want to waste time reshooting that. But when you go through the editing and stuff, I guess it was kind of hoping nobody would notice. But it's just like, I'm pretty sure anybody who's alive, oh, I don't even think anybody who's still alive today will remember who that kid is. Probably with some kind of just some extra. They don't know. But I don't even know if that person is still alive to tell the tale and says like, oh, hey, I'm the guy whose pants was unzipped in Teen Wolf. And if he is alive, I kind of wish somebody, TMZ or somebody, could just interview that guy. And it's like, dude, why was your pants unzipped at the end of Teen Wolf? That was weird. And part of me feels like I don't think we want to know the answer. I think this should just be left as a mystery and leave it at that. Because whatever answer, we might not find it very palatable. Because it might seem... hopefully he wasn't jerking it. Hopefully, there was no sexual component to it, but it had to be, because the best case scenario, he had to really use the bathroom and he didn't want to say nothing, so he's probably peeing some bottle or something nearby, and he forgot to pull up his pants or zip up his pants before, or I don't know, maybe he's hoping the camera wasn't really on him, but he caught just enough of him to see all that. The whole entire thing was weird. It's kind of like the whole Back to Future 3 with that kid doing this, and I don't know if that kid's, that person who was the kid grown up now is still around to answer that question why he was doing this, and maybe he was just a snarky young kid who was just like being like a little smart ass, or I don't know, but it was just the entire experience, people doing like extra stuff in the background of these films. I don't know. It's just like weird stuff that was caught on the camera that clearly was not meant to happen. Anyway, that was Teen Wolf. Just a fun little nice 80s coming of age kind of movie. Michael J. Fox is amazing, and his performance is impeccable. He's definitely the highlight scene stealer in this. Of course, I like the character of Booth. The actress plays that character so well, because she's so charming and like the kind of girl that many young boys want to take seriously and marry, kind of thing. That is kind of like the ideal. She's not like a bombshell, but she's kind of like a average, above average type in looks, but her personality speaks volume to a lot of guys. Those are the type of girls that kind of feels, and she plays that role very well, and she's so appealing. Style seems like that cool best friend type of dude. I never see myself, even as like a teenager, riding on top of a moving car. I don't care how slow it is. That is extremely dangerous. But of course, the young teenage boys, us guys tend to do reckless crap. But that's part of our, biology. We tend to be risk takers, even though outside looking in, it's extremely stupid. But it's also at the same time the thing that you might like about men, a little possible aspects about men, that we tend to be risk takers and take chances. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Teen Wolf. The next movie is a fun one because I haven't seen this in a long time. But I'm gonna leave it a surprise because this is really fun. And it speaks to my sensibilities. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think of Teen Wolf. Have you seen this in a long while? If not, highly encourage you guys to check it out. This is like a fun little movie to watch around this time. But anyway, I'll see y'all soon. Take care.